Hey there, everyone. It's Kelly from Kelly's Astrology here. Welcome back. I've got another extract from one of my favorite astrology webinars that I gave a few years ago. This webinar that you're going to hear, or the extract from the webinar that you're going to hear, it's about 10 minutes long and it'll follow shortly after this introduction. It's from a webinar called PowerPoints, Activate Your Ascendant and Midheaven. And you're going to actually learn quite a lot in this 10-minute extract. You're going to find out how important the planets that are connected to the Ascendant and the Midheaven in your birth chart really are, and the kinds of things they can tell you about your life as a whole. So if you're looking to understand the Ascendant and the Midheaven in your chart, not just the signs on the Ascendant and Midheaven, but how the planets that rule or guide those points really kind of guide your whole life forward, you are going to love the next video, the video that comes up next. So if you'd like the full training, I'm going to pop the link to this webinar below, but I think you're going to get so much out of this next 10-minute video that you'll have lots of food for thought, if you like. So if you're wanting to figure out how to unlock potential, if you want to go further with understanding more about your core identity, this is going to be a really helpful training for you. If you're interested in astrology beyond just this particular training and you'd like to learn all kinds of things about astrology, perhaps how to be an astrologer yourself, do check out my astrology training program, which is happening now. And I'll put the link for that below as well. All right, team, sit back, relax, enjoy this training. And if you've got any questions or requests for future videos, do let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, hit that little bell to my channel so you can be sure to get notified whenever I put up a new video. All right, bye for now. So the way I've defined power planets is I've looked at the ascendant, so the sign that your ascendant falls in and the midheaven sign in your chart. And then we're going to what's called the traditional ruling planet of those signs. And I'm going to take you through what they are in just a couple of slides. But basically, the ascendant and the midheaven as points themselves, as energetic indicators, are highly underrated in terms of how personal and how unique and how important they are. These are what I call the yang, or the kind of extroverted angles. Remember, we do have 4 angles in the chart. We've got the ascendant, the midheaven, the descendant, and the IC. But it's the ascendant and the midheaven that are the more, if you like, dominant or influential 2 out of those 4. And what they do is those points really plug you in to life. They show how you interact with the world, both personally through the ascendant, and they also show how you interact on a larger scale through the midheaven. So these 2 points are incredibly influential, and the planets that guide those points are almost like the entities or the myths or the people, archetypes, however you like to think about the planets. They are the entities that draw you forward through life. So one big point to add into your thinking, especially if you are coming at this from a more modern astrology background, we're not going to really focus on the sun today unless you happen to have Leo as the sign on your ascendant or your midheaven. So that can be a big change. From a traditional astrology perspective, the ruling planet of your ascendant is actually the most important planet in your chart. And we're going to see a little bit when we get into some of our chart examples tonight, how descriptive that planet is in terms of showing the focus and the form that life takes for different people. So this image here is actually what I'm hoping to create a feeling of inside of you and to help you create a feeling of inside of your clients. The ascendant ruling planet describes who you are. It's going to give us information about your core essence and also about your physical body. So when we get into the section of the talk today where we're discussing the ascendant specifically, you're also going to hear some examples about health and wellness stuff as well. The ruling planet of the midheaven sign in your chart it's what you do, whether what you do is a regular sort of professional career or whether it's something else entirely. That midheaven planet and the midheaven sign are going to really speak to whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a career in an office or something different, because there are a lot of options, you know, in terms of what you might do today. We're not all limited by, you know, having to go into sort of a structured office. Yeah, so that's just sort of the concept of where we're coming from. Now, I did mention I'd like you to use for this exercise and for the purpose of this training, the traditional ruling planet in the chart. And what that means is if you have a Scorpio ascendant or a Scorpio midheaven, I'd like you to use Mars as the ruling planet. If you have a Pisces ascendant or a Pisces midheaven, I'd like you to use Jupiter as the ruling planet. And if you have Aquarius as your ascendant or midheaven sign, I'd like you to use Saturn as your ascendant or midheaven ruling planet. So essentially of the 7 visible or original planets, 1 or 2 of these are going to rule both the angles in your chart. So the first step, of course, is just to identify what your ascendant and midheaven ruling planets are. So just to give you a couple of examples, if you have a Libra ascendant, then Venus becomes your ascendant ruling planet. And in your chart, Venus is the main planet to do with identity and also vitality, your body, and any illnesses that you might suffer from. If you've got a Scorpio ascendant, Mars is your personal identity and vitality planet. If you've got a Gemini midheaven, Mercury is your personal career and life direction planet. So if anyone with a Gemini or even a Virgo midheaven, Mercury is the planet that is actually going to describe your career, what happens at your job, how you interact with your boss or your employees. And you may not be thinking along these lines. So for some of you, this is a big philosophical reorientation about how you're drawing the planets into the chart and giving them specific responsibilities based on unique arrangements between signs and angles in your personal chart. If you've got Pisces on the midheaven, Jupiter is going to be your personal career and life direction planet. And so if we were talking about career and you've got either a Sag or a Pisces midheaven, we'd really focus in on the house placement of Jupiter, the sign placement of Jupiter, aspects of Jupiter, and anything else that might be going on of note with Jupiter in the chart. So the concept we're working with here is the idea that through its rulership of a house, a planet is taking care of, influencing, and watching over that area of life. So the planet that rules the sign on your midheaven is your personal career and life direction planet. And the planet that rules the sign on your ascendant is going to be your personal identity planet. And so just making a mention here that we are working with the traditional ruling planets. And so if you're used to thinking Neptune rules Pisces, that's a very modern take. We only discovered Neptune in the mid-1800s. And prior to that, Jupiter was the ruling planet for nearly 2,000 years of Pisces. There's a couple of technical reasons as to why the traditional planets are going to be more helpful for you in this regard. One of them is that the traditional planets do move more quickly, which means you get more personal information. And the example we could use here is if you're a Pisces ascendant and you're born anytime in the 1970s, every Pisces ascendant would be ruled by Neptune in Sagittarius. But there are many different iterations of where Jupiter was, every 12 months changing signs. So you can get some more personal or individual information if you use the original ruling planet. And so just a quick recap, that would be substituting Jupiter in to rule Pisces, Saturn for Aquarius, and Mars to rule Scorpio. So let's have a look at this in action with a couple of examples. So Oprah Winfrey probably needs no introduction in terms of her success in media and broadcasting with her own talk show. One of the other reasons that I wanted to present on this is I know when you're attempting to interpret a chart, it can be quite overwhelming to try and figure out where do I start or what's more important than what else. And as a starting point, this ascendant ruling planet and the midheaven ruling planet are 2 excellent planets to start with in your interpretation. Oprah Winfrey has a Sagittarius ascendant. Now this chart is in the whole sign format. So a couple of the differences you'll see there are that the ascendant degree is what's known as a floating degree and the sign that the ascendant falls in becomes the first house. So the sign boundaries are the house boundaries in this house system. And the midheaven you'll see in the chart marked as MC, and that stands for midheaven. It's the same thing that you would have in your quadrant-based house system if you're using a different house system. What you will notice is that in the whole sign chart, the midheaven is a floating degree and it's not always in the 10th house. It still means what you think it does, but it's adding career significations to the topics of whatever house the midheaven falls into. So for Oprah Winfrey, we've got a Sag Ascendant, which is going to highlight Jupiter in her chart. And then we see Jupiter is over here in Gemini in the 7th house. So there's something really significant about her Jupiter in Gemini describing Oprah's identity, her physical body and shape, and some of her main passions and interests. The ascendant ruling planet isn't always going to be explicitly your career, but I always think if you can bring qualities of your ascendant ruling planet into the work you do, you personally are much more likely to be satisfied in your job. So if we think about what does Jupiter and Gemini have an interest in, ideas, exchange of ideas, communication, either written or verbal. Jupiter is in the 7th house, so there may be an interest in relationships or partnerships. And we can see that certainly in her work, she works in the communications industry, she has a magazine, she was a talk show host for a long time. So we can see that she was able to bring some elements of her core self as described by that Jupiter and Gemini into the work that she's done.